bloody day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out to Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Mame, Billy Highvault, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As The Earth, Charian Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Wayne Foster, Edwin Johnson, Owen Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, God Rockin, Henrik 86, Jeranism, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Matt, Missouri Bear, Nagara, Naibai, Qatar Craig, Sally Ballis, Silver Umbrella, Skeptic936, Texas Mike, the Flat Earth Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock app, theflatearthchannel.com, and there's the second page. The Real Gabster, who's my latest Patreon. Thank you very much for joining me on Patreon, Real Gabster. Much appreciate your support. Also, Tina Baker, Tom Herkins, and Wind Rider. So thank you very much to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Really do appreciate your support. Now, I can hear the sound, or could hear the sound, of 10th Man cracking logs to start his fire, as it's about 5:30 a.m. for him. But nevertheless, I'll raise the mic. Hopefully we'll get a conversation going once he actually rejoins. We're also joined by a few... Oh, you are still here. Good, good.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We've also got a few people in Discord who have hustled off mute. So, off mic. Yeah. But Buster 2, Earth-Shaped Investigator, Flatulent Unicorn, who I'm yet to take off mute, but I will now. Ryan Eartherton and Truth in Your Face. So good to have you if you are around and off mute. Hello.
Good to be here.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. No panic.
Good evening.
We're not live yet, so don't worry.
We're recording, but we're not live. And
Correct.
You said mice. Was that in reference to the rat on the rocket?
No. I mean, I don't mind talking about the rat on the rocket. I just think it's nonsense. Anyway,
it's total nonsense.
It's double nonsense, correct?
Well, it's triple nonsense because he should be on Mars.
I mean, obviously the argument we have here is all of the information, regardless of what the context or inaccuracy or video editing, foible, whatever, is all taking place in the same unreal location. So
let me guess, space.
Well, yeah. So the fact that those images are claimed to have come from space just means that they're not real images. So the fact that they're not real images have got something crazy going on in it is kind of inconsequential to me. It's like, sorry, this claim to be picture of a machine in a second law of thermodynamics violation has apparently got a mouse running around in it. No, the entire narrative, all of it, is fake. Why? Well, because the place that they're claiming the pictures are taken from isn't real.
Precisely. And that's exactly why they do things like this. So that you're at least talking about it in their reference frame that they want you
I'm
to
glad
do.
I hadn't voiced that yet, but I'm glad you've said it first. So, yeah, that was the only conclusion I could draw. Why? Well, same reason as arguing about whether rockets would work in space. The argument about whether or not it's a mouse on both sides of the fence will include the presupposition that it's taking place in space, in outer space.
Yeah, they're not this clumsy.
No, of course not. It's intentionally been engineered in there for us to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw this was coming into Flat Earth through the NASA videos. When I first saw all the major mistakes, I'm going, can they be this stupid? What are they doing here? I mean, anybody who would just be in the editing room could figure this one out. And then, it just dawned on me as listening to your show and all the time you made this point. I go, you know what? He's got a point. they win both ways if you're arguing if something's in space or shouldn't be in space.
Precisely.
So yeah, that rat, if we're going to keep this going, that rat should be on Mars. Remember the rat on Mars?
Yeah, the little, I don't know what it was, ferret or something of that nature.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, let's argue about whether it's a rock or a ferret, not the fact that the place it's taken is claimed to be a location that can't possibly exist. Mm-hmm. Mars, in their context, is a rock in a sky vacuum, floating. Yeah, preposterous notion. But let's argue about whether there's a mouse in the picture. Meanwhile, Mars stays contextually a rock in a sky vacuum, while we all argue about whether there's a mouse in the picture, or a ferret, or whatever it was.
Well, they put it there so we can mull it over.
Mull it over?
Yeah, the mull and then mull, play on words.
Mull.
Mull it over, mull the animal. It was an early morning pun.
Yeah, I get it.
Too much.
Too much. If it had been a mole in the picture, it would have worked, but it probably wasn't a ferret either, but there we go.
Too early for everybody.
I've got a new Discord server guest. Hold on a second. Hey, Oblivion. How you doing? Hopefully you can hear us. Oh, dear. What's happened there? Change the way Discord works. Is it Discord? No. OBS. And you can now move things around while the screen's actually live. That's super annoying.
Give us a sound check, Discord. We heard you a few minutes ago.
Someone said hello. It's okay. I know it's working.
1, 2, 3.
There we go.
Hey, 10th man.
Yeah.
Has anyone told you you sound like Peter Coyote, if you know who that is?
Peter Coyote? No, who is he?
Peter Coyote. I was watching a YouTube video, one of from Spark, I think it was, and I could just hear the guy talking, and I swear it was you. But it's a presenter called Peter Coyote, and if you listen to him, it's your voice down to a T.
Is it coyote, like the animal coyote?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he owes me royalties then, I guess. Borrowing my voice. Or maybe I owe him royalties.
Maybe.
So I got a topic I'm trying to figure out here and how they've reversed this. It's probably obvious to somebody, but I told you I was looking into how the navigators use the sextant and navigate themselves over the vast oceans. And this 15-degree movement comes in all the time. But it's not of the Earth moving. It's of the luminaries.
Of course.
So it's amazing how they transpose that to say it's the Earth. And yet, when I look into how you're supposed to get your positions, they say, conceptually, you have to look at the Earth as unmoving. You use the sextant properly. That's interesting. I'm going to put something together here that nails them with their own ridiculous statements that they've reversed to trick the masses. I'm going to go towards the ocean here and find the sailor who's actually using this, and I'll even pay him to teach it to me properly. But they are in the PDFs and in the files that you find online. They even say in there that when you're actually doing it, you have to assume the Earth is not moving. Well, then what is moving at 15 degrees, dingbats?
The lights. You said it already.
I know. I'm just having fun here.
Fair enough.
No, obviously. It's there. Oh my gosh, it's great. Yeah, they take 360 divided by 24 hours, you get 15 degrees an hour.
Hello, EL and Acum Virus. Good to have you. Starting in about 20 minutes.
Yep.
Speaking of, hello.
Hello.
I was going to say, speaking of sort of presupposing with the opposition, that seems to happen a lot on the 24/7 Discord server. When it comes to other flat earthers trying to entertain, those, how rockets would work in space arguments, and I always try to sort of use the arguments that you guys use on this show and just sort of shut down the arguments at, where are these, rockets traveling through. And a lot of them sort of seem to just want to argue for the sake of arguing and sort of dismiss that argument altogether. And yeah, there's a lot of ignorance on that server. I've experienced a lot of them don't know what scientific method. I've actually been in a fair few arguments with other flat earthers, and it's even resulted me in getting muted and banned and whatnot. And I've even instigated a few sort of arguments when QE's been on there, and and that's resulted in him sort of storming off and in frustration because there's a lot of ignorance. Sort of other flat earthers just not willing to further their arguments, and they're just sort of sticking to tired. But yeah, trying to get through
Handwave
them,
dismissal.
and I've always sort of referring them to this show.
Well, it did get pointed out pretty quickly here. Handwave dismissal isn't a rebuttal. The fact that they're hand waving your argument just means they've lost. If they then want to go on to argue their point after hand waving your rebuttal, then just laugh at them. They want to argue it anyway, even though I've debunked you.
Yeah,
okay.
right. What was that? Sorry.
Well, the other thing that they do is they take your argument and spin it around and start demanding of you what you are asking of them based on their claim. So if they claim they've got scientific validity, we'll say, well, give us your scientific validity then. And they go, where's your scientific validity? It's like pathetic, really.
Exactly. That's right. Happens absolutely all the time. But I'm just surprised that the majority there is a vast sort of a core group of flat earthers that seem to think like that. But it's sort of inherent to people's nature to be that way. A lot of them, like I said, just argue for the sake of argument and just the satisfaction of being right and having won over someone. And when they realize that they're losing an argument, they resort to sort of childish tactics and
I'll talk over you.
sort of like I said, I always try to direct them to this show because you guys are on the cutting edge, and and not only that, with the fallacies, a lot of our people are arguing, that I think you guys were talking about this on the previous show or a couple of shows prior to this one about how certain people say that using a fallacious argument doesn't mean that you're wrong. And I'm just like trying to explain to these people that if you're using fallacious logic to try to come across in an argument and put your point across, then if you're being illogical, you're not making any sense. So it's just you're talking gibberish. You have no argument. You are wrong by definition.
Yeah,
but a lot of people seem to think that you sort of use that as a tactic to win debates, and it's not a tactic. It's just it's logic.
They're using what's called the fallacy as a defense. So they're saying just because you've used a logical fallacy doesn't necessarily mean that the thing being claimed is false. That's the fallacy. Well, when I give an example of the fallacy, I use a red car and make it plain that is going to be a red car, that there's a red car sat here right now, and it is real. So long as we're all understanding in this example that there is going to be a red car, and I use a fallacious argument to prove that it's red, and you go, well, I can debunk your argument because you've used a formal logical fallacy to prove that it's red, and then I wheel the car on and go, look, but it is red. then yes, you can claim the fallacy at that point when you've actually proven the thing that you originally argued using fallacious logic. So the argument used to prove your point becomes void if you've used fallacious logic. Now, if you can then go on to prove R, for example, so if we're arguing about the radius value and the argument begs the question and automatically assumes the R value, and you go, that doesn't mean the R value is not proven, well, prove it by another means then. Oh, what's that? You're going to use non-stop fallacious arguments to try and prove this radius value. At which point, it's a fallacious claim. Void, in all respects, not correct, not proven. So yeah, if you can demonstrate that which you've used fallacy for as true in the aftermath, then you can claim the fallacy, but claiming it without actually proving the thing you've argued with fallacy to be true simply because it's asserted that a fallacy has been committed and no proof of the actual claims come, then that's also complete nonsense. You can't have a fallacy claim unless the original fallacious argument has been proven to be true. And they never do. They just go, oh, right, well, just because I've used a fallacy doesn't make it incorrect. No, it doesn't if you prove it, which you haven't done with your fallacious argument, which is now void, because you've used fallacy. They just don't understand fallacy. That's the bottom line. They don't understand good logic, more importantly.
Well, that is the
Sad
bottom
part
line.
about that, though, is that they're defending the use of a fallacy.
Yeah,
Why would you even use a fallacy in the first place to defend your position?
exactly.
And then after getting caught on that, saying, well, just because I used one doesn't mean it's false. Well, why'd you use it? What? If you could just prove what you were trying to claim, you wouldn't have to use a fallacy. You would just prove it.
Exactly. In the elongated example of a fallacy that I made, a fallacious argument for me having a red car, you call fallacy as rightly so, but then I wheel the car on. In that example, I could have just wheeled the car on. There it is, red car, no proof needed. Same goes for the obvious and observable nature of our reality. The Earth's obviously flat. That's how we observe it. That's just a fact admitted on both sides. So taking into account that I don't need to do anything other than open my eyes, there's no need to employ fallacy. It's like, oh, you're assuming F. No, there's no maths being done. I'm just opening my eyes and having a look. Obviously and observably flat. Literally no proof required. You guys have got to tie us up in assumptions that things that are there aren't really there. They're being projected up at 7/6R, based on R. You know, that's your logic to get to just explaining why we bloody see something when I just open my eyes. No science needed, no maths needed, a set of eyeballs only required.
Yep. Pretty
Hello,
simple.
Squatting Thunder and FE Batman.
Good morning, by the way, everybody.
Hello, Chocolate.
Good morning, Chocolate.
On point as soon as you get here. I love it, Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Thank you, sir.
Are you back at work now?
Yeah, I'm back at work.
Bummer.
Well, they're constantly violating the law of non-contradiction as well.
You realise technically I've been at work for the last week, right?
Yeah, you're never off work.
Well, no, I did. I took a week off. So all those pre-records we did were so that I could run shows every day over Christmas and actually have a week off. I mean, technically I'm monitoring all the shows and all that other stuff, so I'm kind of working. But, you know, the ancillary stuff isn't sitting down and doing this, the stressful bit, the production of an actual show that I didn't do over Christmas.
Well, when you did 2 shows a day, you worked for the future, so you still did the work. It's time stamped it for the
That
following
was
week.
us. That was us doing overtime.
That was
Exactly.
Chocolate doing
Your
overtime
unpaid
while he was on
overtime.
vacation.
But the point is, I did actually have what I would consider to be a week off over Christmas, and it's the first time in about two and a half years that I've actually done that. So aside from the odd sick day or a malfunction, I can't remember anything else that's maybe precluded one day of show for, you know, reasons beyond my control. But beyond that, I literally haven't had a day off in about 2.5 years.
Well, it works. It works well. You ought to do it more often because nothing happened to the show in a bad way by you recording 2 shows in order to have a week off.
Yeah, and they weren't exactly the best received shows anyway. There's not many people around. I mean, I'm sure the people who were around and had the time to watch those shows were very grateful that they were published. By the same token, the vast majority of people were like me, out with their family doing Christmas stuff. So, they weren't the best received shows that I'd put out there. But by the same token, the material was excellent. They were, for some reason, each of those pre-records really did turn out very, very well. I was pleased with all of them. They were good shows. So anybody who did tune in got, a good show over Christmas, despite it being a pre-record. So I was chuffed to bits. I got my kind of week off, although I was in the chat monitoring as if I wasn't. But, that's part of the entertainment value. I like watching the show, so I can't really consider watching, especially the uncut and after show after all my family had gone to bed or whatever, and me sitting up and watching that. I don't have to monitor the chat. There are moderators. But I like watching it, so I did. I enjoyed watching it. It was good. Screw you if you say it's bad to be watching my own show. It's not that vain.
Well, I like the debates because they're provocative by nature of the subject. And, once you weed through all the dummies and you get to some really good points, and then you're just dying to hear a good response, but there isn't one. So it's just like, come on, some of you smart ballers, get over here and try to answer one of the 8 housekeeping questions properly, without contradiction, without violation of the law of non-contradiction, without fallacies. Prove water bends without just saying just so stories.
They can't. I just want to do a quick shout out. So the flatearthchannel.com, welcome to the Discord server. He's joined as the first Yoda. So although there not a great deal of difference between all the different levels as a channel member, the first Yoda to join, which is like the top level, is the flatearthchannel.com. So massive shout out to you, my friend.
The first Yoda.
Yeah. So you got penguin, hyena, lion, unicorn, and Yoda.
Sounds like a Narnia cast.
Just all sort of fictional but semi-relevant. You have to, off the top of your head, think, what can I put as these categories? I was like, well, animals are quite good. And penguins are relevant. You've got IPS who's got penguins, so I thought it's relatively related to Flat Earth in some small way. So I was like, yeah, penguin, that could be a good level, just for the cheapest one. So the cheapest option they had for membership I ticked. I was like, yeah, I definitely want the cheapest option to be available. And it pretty much give you all the things I want members to have, access to the chat if I turn off unmembershiped people, should there be a whole load of ruckus in the chat, which I hope will happen. I don't mean I hope it'll be a ruckus, but I hope it'll reach the point where there's enough people in there that it could get rowdy. At the moment, it's fairly controllable. I can just about keep an eye on the chat, but there will hopefully, with growth, become a stage where I need that functionality. So I'm glad that I've got it. I'm glad I'm getting members now, while it's actually building up a sort of membership base on the channel, while the channel's not enormous, which it isn't. I'm surprised I've even been given memberships, to be perfectly honest, but I'm elated that I've got them. So I want people to be able to sort of join at the cheapest level. But that said, you've got other tick boxes, and other people will just want to support you more. And the sort of odd members only video that I put out, I think I ticked the box on the lowest level for that as well. So it's like pretty much you get the same thing. I mean, I think once a week I'll probably do a shout out for all the people who are at the higher levels of membership, just so they're getting something extra. But when I did that on Friday, I incorporated a couple of penguins anyway. The ones that are on that particular occasion that have got more channel subscribers. In other words, it looks by the numbers like they've got content. In other words, it's a worthwhile shout out to say, go and subscribe to X, Cleary, or whoever.
Well, one thing you don't have to worry about is ruckus on your show. It just seems to find a way.
Well, it's worked, I don't know if it's reverse psychology or what, but by not overly moderating the chat, that while it does get to be pretty, it can be the pits in the chat on the main channel because there's nobody banned. So there's pretty much free and open for all to chat, but it reaches a kind of equilibrium where there's a semi-mutual respect between the parties. They're all chatting away now before the show's even started. So you've got Victor, Carol, I can't read any names. I was going to read some of the names. Something Ryder, I haven't got it up on my small screen to read it in big text. Rune, I can see Rune Thornton, and they're chatting away, reasonably happy without a great deal of moderation needed. You know, the odd swear words, you know, that I would just approve as long as it's on context.
Well, your chat room, like I've said before in chat, giving them shout outs, are Flat Earth warriors. They know how to handle themselves in there pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. Got a new member even before the show started. Got a whole bunch of them that I have to shout out. So Flatulent
Every new
Unicorns
member.
just joined. I suppose that's going to be the time that people join when the show's about to go live.
Every new member is a former baller.
That's true. That's absolutely correct. So yeah, shout out to Flatulent Unicorn as you happen to have joined while the pre-show's running. Joined as a penguin, or she.
My pleasure. Definitely a hit.
Oh, he's in the Discord. Hey, hey, Flatulent Unicorn. You're not a she then.
No. My pleasure, like I said.
It's floating by the pre-show now. Welcome to Penguin. A couple of minutes and we'll go live.
You know, we just a little side note, how we reference Descartes, and I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
I was doing some reading, and Augustine, prior to Descartes, said, "If I err, I am."
If
And I'll
I
just read what
err.
it says.
If I
Yeah,
err.
If I err, ERR.
What's
so if I
err
make a
mean?
mistake, I am.
What, is err mean think?
Err, make a mistake. It's almost like, I think it was a Hume who says, "If I doubt, therefore I am," because I'm doubting, so I got to be here to doubt. It's kind of the same line of thinking there. He argued that a person who does not exist cannot err. Therefore, even if a person errs, he cannot err without first existing. So even error proves the certainty of existence. So Augustine, Descartes, and others have proven existence by the smallest words and smallest form of logic there is.
Very good.
And in the Latin, it's, if I'm pronouncing it right, cogito ergo sum, is I think, therefore I am.
Can you say it again in Latin?
Cogito ergo sum.
Cogito.
Cogito, Cogito, ergo, ERGO, and then sum, SUM. Cogito ergo
sum. I like it. Think, therefore I am. Very good.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Very. Till you find out it's on the side of a fag packet or something.
Well, like you said, if it's truth, it doesn't matter if it comes from a prison cell.
That's true. That's very true.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon button and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, before I introduce our guests on both G+ and Discord, I'm going to shout out all of the new members. So a massive shout out to Silver Umbrella, who's joined as a hyena, and Rakia Life also joined as a hyena. The God Series, who joined as a lion. Kirk Hadley, who joined as a penguin. The FlatEarthChannel.com, who joined as a Yoda. Big shout out to you, FlatEarthChannel.com. Also Lightwave, who joined as a hyena, and Flatulent Unicorn, who just joined now as a penguin. So a massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting me by joining as a channel member. We are joined by Ranty Flat Earth, Arwin.
Hello.
Hello. Chocolate Sane and 10th Man in G+. Welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Got an all-star
Good
cast.
morning, too.
Hello. We've also got an all-star cast in Discord. So hello. Hopefully you're all off mute already. You should be. Or Rams Corp isn't, so I'll just take... Oh, no,
Hey,
you're all
guys.
good. Good day. Good day.
Hello.
Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from Imperial Beach.
Not from Australia.
Nope.
Axial
I think we should-
rotation of the Earth-based variety, and any of that?
Any of that in the Discord? Anybody can answer that?
Axial rotation. Anybody?
Yeah, I think the panel here knows the
No,
answer.
No.
there's no evidence. No way to prove it either way.
That's scientific evidence of gravity.
No, none of that either.
No.
Any joy with Dr. Becky regarding a single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, somebody behind the computer must be doing that and then forwarding the data to them. So
We've got
they're
Dr.
just
Becky.
relying upon that there must be some kind of scientific process somewhere.
Yeah,
Right.
Dr. Becky's claimed she's off to do some science and been challenged in regards to what science she's been done. I didn't know if 10th Man had any further contact from her Q&A. Ask me anything.
Still waiting. I'll reach out again. Maybe I might reach her through a black hole discussion.
Black hole or otherwise.
It almost makes me laugh, the notion of, oh, I'm off to do some science and let me go sit at my computer and check emails while listening to iTunes. Like, come on, man. The hell
Don't
science
forget,
are you
look-
doing?
Come on, Chocolate, that's science.
No, don't forget looking at pictures from a medium that doesn't exist. That's the science part. The other stuff is entertainment while you do it.
And figuring out how things in that medium that doesn't exist act. It's great.
How'd you get the picture?
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of the container, given that we have gas pressure here, we are breathing it, and it's claimed that the sky is an infinite available volume for that gas pressure to fill. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
Excellent formatted question. The ballers just don't seem to understand English. They keep asking us to prove a container, and we keep saying, you're the one saying there's a sky vacuum. You prove you can have gas pressure without one first.
If any baller says, what's your evidence that there's a container? Reply. Because we've laid out the antecedent consequent relationship about a bazillion times. What's the evidence? Well, we have gas pressure. Any
Although I do
Go
wonder
on.
sometimes, do the ballers disclaim a container even concerning the universe? Or
so it-
do they not?
No, it's completely uncontained, ever expanding. They do attribute values to it, which you can dig out and reference. QE often does. My initial argument, which I've just given up on giving because otherwise you can't quantify it mathematically, which they so love to do, is to point out that it's ever expanding. Into what? Well, that's kind of a problem, but that's something we will also skirt past in that conversation, right?
Nathan, they can't even decide if it's open or closed. Come on.
No, it doesn't matter what they decide. It's perfectly clearly laid out. in terms of what the heliocentric system is claimed to be. Open.
Ajar.
Capable of being left.
No, it's
Matter
ajar.
can
Nathan.
leave. According to them, matter can leave. End of story. It doesn't matter what they believe when they come here and argue in the trenches. It's like when they argue about Earth and atmosphere travelling together. No, I'm afraid Neil deGrasse Tyson is your high priest, and when he asserts that a ball being thrown or kicked through a football field goal is deviating because Earth's rotating underneath, that's very much a separate Earth-atmosphere system to give you your 2 reference frames. So it doesn't matter what they believe in the trenches. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
There's no confirmed measured distance to the sun.
How can you measure the distance to something if you don't know what that something even is?
You're gonna have to figure that one out first.
Just guess. You just make a few
Exactly.
assumptions. You make a few assumptions.
Well, that's not
Could be
scientific
that.
then, is it?
No, they're just assumptions. But
That's just
that's the answer.
philosophical.
I'm not saying I would do that. You know, I would be ridiculed for saying, as I did on my interview with Vice, I don't know what it is. But apparently that's laughable. Well,
That's
beyond
the
that,
only honest thing to say.
well, yeah, beyond that, you've got to make assumptions.
Yeah.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
No, and if there was, it would destroy magnetism.
Yeah, self-perpetuating. No. That's part of what I'm asking for when I say self-perpetuating.
To me, this is still one of the more ridiculous, more fringe myths about the whole globe system. There's so very little necessity or anything to back it up, and it's What's
That's-
now the record?
It's
8
completely
miles.
conceptual.
What?
Right, the R value.
What's
Any
your
evidence?
argument? What's your argument? What is your argument?
Do you need to repeat that 3 times, Brenda? What's our argument? We're asking for, in this instance now, new question, any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Measurements don't require evidence, right? If I
hasn't been
measure the
measured.
height
Yeah,
of a
they
door, I don't have
require somebody
evidence.
to measure them.
I just measure it.
Let's just answer that. It hasn't been measured. Nobody's dug down to the centre of the Earth with a tape measure, so it's not been measured.
But you don't have to. You don't have to dig down to measure the diameter of a sphere,
Sorry, diameter of a sphere. Radius. Hello?
or the radius,
Yeah, you do.
You don't have to dig down to measure the radius of a sphere.
Yeah, you do. First, if you're going to assume that you're measuring a sphere by taking a different measurement and extrapolating it, that isn't measuring a radius. Measuring a
No, but
radius
you already-
would be... You're talking through me. This isn't going to be a very long conversation between us, is it now? So yeah, your assumption that you're measuring a spherical radius would be the main problem. Now you can measure other circumferences or trajectories of lights in the sky and then insert your presupposition that that will translate into a spherical radius, but I'm asking for an actual measurement.
So I can measure the radius of a spherical object without having to actually open it up and put a tape measure at the center of the sphere.
That's
I can
nice.
do that mathematically simply
How
by
did you figure
measuring
out
its
it was a
diameter.
Hold on,
sphere in
John.
the first
And-
place?
and-
Hold on, Chocolate.
do-
Go on, Brenda.
I can simply do that by measuring its diameter and doing the appropriate mathematical calculation
And that would
without
be
having to open up the sphere.
the sphere
So
that
on
you're-
the assumption that the Earth is a sphere, I can measure it.
after you've assumed it's a
On the
sphere.
assumption.
After you've assumed it. After you've assumed it's a sphere.
Got yourself there, huh,
Oh
brother?
God, I just want to get it in once. You've got to assume it's a sphere, though, haven't you?
Well, I could build on previous knowledge that I already know
Sorry,
that the Earth
you've
is
got
a
to
sphere.
assume it's a sphere.
And
Just
from-
need a yes. Just need a yes. Yes. First, I'll assume it's a sphere. Then I'll make an extrapolation. That's what you're going to be doing.
No, I can build on the fact that I already.
No, you're going to fucking assume it. You're not going to build on Jack. You're going to build on other assumptions. You don't have to like it, Fundy.
No,
Don't talk through me.
I can build on the fact that I already
I heard.
know that the Earth is.
I heard, and I've pointed out that it's not built on facts, it's built on assumptions. Now, if you want to start arguing through your misapprehensions that they're not assumptions, I'm more than happy to do that and correct you. But I'm not going to listen to you over and over again saying you're building on something that you're not. It is based on assumption. You don't have to like it.
We already know that the Earth is.
Don't tell me what you know, you fundy zealot. Have you got anything to prove it beyond your fundamentalist assertion that you've just made? Is that it? We know.
Oh, yes, you can
Bloody
prove
fundy.
that the Earth is. Yes,
Don't tell me
yes,
again that you know. I want you to prove it. Don't keep declaring your fundy faith.
Yeah, we do that by the measuring the shadows on the ground. You can do that if you have 3 points. You can measure irrefutably that
Irrefutably that what?
that the Earth is a sphere. That's what you can.
Now take us through it. Do you want to explain how you get these 3 measurements and make the firm and obvious conclusion that you're measuring something spherical? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, it's called the. It's what the Greeks did. Eratosthenes.
Tell
You
me about
measure
it.
the length of shadows at least 3 different points on the surface of an object, and you can deduce its curvature using
Just gonna interrupt.
trigonometry
Sorry, sorry, Brenda. On the surface of an object. And what object would this be?
That would be the Earth.
And what object shape would that be at this point when you're measuring the shadows on an object? We're not assuming an object now, are we? What object is this that we're assuming?
Well, I assume that I'm standing on the ground, right? And that
And
I'm
what
standing
shape
on an
is
object.
that assumption?
You deny that I'm standing on an object?
You said object. Now I'm asking what shape. You've just got to admit your fundy presupposition, love. You've just got to admit it. That the shape you're going to be presupposing in this instance is spherical now, isn't it, love? You don't have to admit it.
No,
if you don't admit it quickly,
no.
if you don't admit it quickly, I'm going to kick you out. You're going to be assuming that you're measuring that object. Yeah? You've said object. I'm saying what shape is that object? And you've gone Earth-shaped. You won't admit that this is a presupposition of a sphere, but I'll drag you around by your short hairs while you don't admit it, if you like.
No, you don't already know what shape it is that the surface of the object that you're on. You don't have to know that. You don't have to presuppose it.
Yeah, you do. That's incorrect.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You
Okay,
just
then talk us
measure
through it.
the length of the shadows, and you can deduce its
And how do you make that deduction?
with simple trigonometry.
No, you've said trigonometry. The trigonometry leads you to a deduction. We've heard the first part. Now we're at a deduction, apparently. Deducing things. What happened to measuring it? No, we're making a deduction. So I want to know what the deduction is and how it's been made. Do you know?
So, yeah. So you don't know the shape of the surface you're on. What you do is you measure the length of shadows on
We
that
heard!
surface.
I don't need a repetition. You've measured this. We heard. Now you're making a deduction.
Yes.
Yeah, and what is it?
Yes. And from that you can
Not from that. You haven't told us, you bonehead.
from that you can deduce.
Not from that. You haven't fucking told us yet. Are you dumb? Do you think I'm so stupid as I'm going to let you whistle past the very thing I'm asking for by saying and then when you haven't told us a damn thing? No, I'll tell you then, love. Your assumption will be that it's a sphere.
No, you don't assume it, you deduce it.
Oh, I see. So you're going to change my word assume to deduce, having not given us anything at all that leads us to a logical conclusion of your deduction that started off as a measurement and has now got this presupposition being relabeled as a deduction. No, it's just your fundy belief, as always, being imposed on some bullshit measurement you're making. Yeah, that's all your deduction is, your fundy belief in sphere.
No, it's based on simple trigonometry. you calculate the right angle.
We're going around in
of
circles.
the,
I'm sick of it. We're going
No,
around in
that
circles.
makes
You're going to tell us
sense.
about the trig you do. You're going to tell us
Let me
about the
ask-
trig you do without telling us how you've made a deduction. So you're going to tell us about the trig again that we've heard 3 times? No, I don't want to hear it. You're going around in circles, leaving out the part where you assume a sphere. It's just getting stupid. You know you're ignoring that part. You know you've substituted deduction for assumption when you don't give us a shred of evidence for why or how you've made that deduction. And I assure you your deduction is just sphere Earth. And well, I'm going to deduce from these shadows that it's a sphere I'm measuring. How? Well, by that I mean that we're going to make that deduction. Perfectly reasonable. You haven't told me anything. No, we make trigonometric measurements. Well, you're going around in circles, love, and you still haven't told us. It's just an assumption. Like I told you before,
No,
this little trail of nonsense you've taken us on, this is just your assumption. Like all globe claim to be proof. None of them are actually proof. They've got a deduction in there. And what do you know? Their deduction is their outcome. Shock horror.
No, you use Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah,
right?
we've heard. That's
And
it.
you
You're not going to
measure-
repeat it 4 more times. We heard. We heard you do trig. Yeah, we heard. You didn't tell us about how you made your deduction, so you can fuck off now. You're not going to hear it 5 more times. We've heard it 4 already.
May I
I think I can
address Brenda?
summarize this for her though. Like, sun angles only work on a ball because I
Precisely.
don't know any other way.
Yeah, precisely. At some point, she's going to say, well, this only works if I'm on a sphere. It's a logical deduction. What, the assumption of sphericity? Isn't that the very thing you're trying to prove by measuring your bloody trigonometric angles? Oh, no. It's the deduction stage I'm not going to mention beyond the point that I've made a deduction and therefore sphere. The very thing I've assumed at the beginning of this measurement.
Yep.
Well, Ranty's on the show. Ranty,
But-
you there?
She kept saying we're going to build upon, but what is it that you're building upon?
The assumption of a sphere.
And then,
Right.
so you build upon that assumption, which you obviously have to start with because you didn't actually measure a sphere. But then you say you don't have to measure it. So you build upon it, and then what? You deduce it? So when is it measured?
Never.
Brenda?
Ranty, are you there?
I am.
It's never measured. That's the whole point.
Okay, Ranty did something. 18 miles. What did you see when you photographed 1 foot above the sea level, 18 miles, Ranty? What happened? What should have happened if it was a sphere? Let me put it that way.
I shouldn't have seen any buildings at all across that distance,
And what did you see?
shore to shore.
So if it was a sphere, the photograph would have shown no buildings. But
Correct.
because in your 18-mile, 1 foot above sea level picture, shot, photograph, real, actual photograph, not shadows, you saw the buildings.
That's true.
So then the curve or sphere surface was not blocking anything.
Yeah, water wasn't conforming to 8 inch per mile squared.
Okay, there you go, Brenda.
Yeah. Brenda's input to the last housekeeping question just brought us to the firm conclusion we already know. They know how to beg the question. They know how to assume their outcome. That's all they've got. Shout out to Validation Boy. Every single globe argument ever will start with the presupposition that you're on a sphere. There are no exceptions.
I don't know why they don't see that as a big problem.
They see it as a big problem, but they can't admit to it in reality because then that would mean many things.
They don't accept
so they're not
our
on the really huge
observations and information. They just want their numbers that works on their pre-assumed ball.
Hey, Jimmy, good to have you.
Morning. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year to you too.
Good, Jimmy.
if I can take a leaf out of Nathan's book and just say it as it is, they don't believe it because they're fundy fuckwits.
In reality, there's nothing to believe, though, right? Shout out to the flatearthchannel.com. They presume the light source is 93 million miles away. Right on. It's just preposterous. I couldn't remember the name of the guy. I was trying to explain this to my wife the other day, and there was somebody who basically put up an objection and said that they couldn't possibly be those distances. They'd have to be enormous. And then it just took that, reverse engineered it, and then you end up with Betelgeuse being absolutely vast. I can't remember the name of the guy, though. It'll come to me later. But yeah, exactly. They just make them absolutely ginormous so they don't violate the inverse square law. Ugh, just the pile of smear, the heliocentric smear of bullshit is so thick, it's untrue. But an objection literally gets reversed engineered into the reality of that model based on their absurd distances.
Didn't their high priest, Neil deGrasse Tyson, say that the shadow thing would work if the sun was close to the earth too? Someone said that.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yeah, why won't they ever accept that? What is it, 32 miles across and 3,000 miles away? And it works both. They certainly refuse the latter. They want their giant, ridiculous numbers.
Well, they don't pay attention to that part, right? They nobody wants to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson say whatever Eratosthenes apparently did would work on a flat surface. Nobody wants to hear that because that's not part of the narrative that coincides with their story. So we have to, quickly hush, don't talk about that.
Arguments
that
were debunked
stuff is flat.
These arguments were debunked in 2015, really early on. And I think there's a reason behind that. I think once you get into the point where you tie down a flat earther to further assumptions about what the sun is and what it does, given these values that are measured without the presupposition of an R value. So see Smokescreen Design's response to Red's rhetoric, was Jeranism correct about the distance to the moon, I think is the title. It's a pretty elongated title, but Smokescreen Design is the video. It basically goes through the mathematics and shows where Red Rhetoric's inserted a presupposition of an R value when taking these measurements. This is like 2015. Such an old argument. But the point is that once you've done that, so once Smokescreen's done that, he's essentially committing to measuring a 3,000 mile, or whatever it is, sun, given his angles. Well, then you can start superimposing that presupposition by a flat earther onto how will that work on this azimuthal equidistant projection that you committed to as your model now, didn't you, flat earther? And then you're fucked as a flat earther. But it doesn't change the fact that beyond that presupposition, I don't have to make a claim about how far the sun is. I don't care. I don't know. I've never measured it. But what's that you say? You know how far it is when you assume an R value. Well, that means nothing. You've assumed R.
They have no foundations.
They resist forthcoming with reading in chat. Brenda, of course, calling you a bully boy again. Brenda, all you got to do is just be more forthcoming. Just answer the question so we can keep the conversation going. But the minute you stall and hesitate and do your little games, it gets boring. So next time you come on, just answer the question. And if you don't know the answer, say, I don't know the answer, so we could keep the conversation going.
No, she went round in circles. Round and round and round she went, back from measurements to the presupposition, also relabeled as a deduction. And then back to the measurements, and back and forth we go. 4 times we went round in the same circle. But now I'm a bully?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah,
no,
well, that's
didn't have an argument that was coherent.
How do you claim you have measurements and then in the same claim say that you don't need to measure what you have measurements for? Like, Brenda, are you out of your mind? What's wrong with you guys? You say you don't have to measure it. You could just assume and deduce and all of that. But then when we ask you for measurements, this is what you say are the measurements. And then say that you don't have to measure it.
They're just going nuts. Look, even this morning in my chat today, there was somebody literally arguing for over 10 minutes that a fallacious argument can actually give a true answer. And he thought that that was a good excuse to be allowed to make fallacious arguments with presuppositions. And he
Excellent.
honestly believed that.
Excellent segue for me to do two things. One, shout out Unitox Femu. He says Brenda is better than Merlin and Gandalf together. Fair enough. The other opportunity is to shout out my second channel. So there's a link in the info box to Nathan Oakley channels. Those of you watching live right now, obviously this doesn't apply if you're watching this actually on Nathan Oakley channel. You're already subscribed. But the pre-show discussed exactly that by coincidence, Arwin. So we were talking about the fact that if you are to claim the fallacy. Hello, Adam. Good to have you.
I thought I was going to be the second thing, but yeah, fair enough.
No, just noticed you.
Afternoon, mate.
I just ran this out. If you were to claim the fallacy, you've got to actually prove the thing that is being claimed by your opponent to be, well, no, just because I've used a fallacy doesn't make my claim untrue. Well, no, you've then got to actually prove your claim. Whereas if you've used fallacious logic, your claim's void. Well, if your proof at the end of that claim is the very thing used with fallacious logic, you've only got to actually prove the thing then, rather than just say, oh, just because I used a fallacy doesn't mean it isn't true. Well, no, you've got to then prove it, though. Not just use another fallacious argument, or claim that the one you used just because it was fallacious has then proved your point? Oh, these people don't understand fallacy, but there was
right. Otherwise, it turns into just observe and declare.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Observe is there, therefore they have proof for their fallacious claim.
Right, exactly, Arwin. So if you've made a fallacious claim using fallacious logic, yeah, you can claim fallacy after you've proved your bloody claim.
Yep. So Nathan, why do you pretend that you can talk to me when you have me muted?
I unmuted you about 3-4 minutes ago.
Yeah, you mute me and then you pretend to the audience that you're talking to me, and like I can respond when I can't.
No, I didn't. I pointed out that you went around in circles 4 times.
Yes, you do. You mute me, and then you keep talking and pretend as though I can talk when I can't. You have me muted.
You had nothing to say. Who cares? You didn't have a winning argument that you were in the middle of pulling through.
Yeah, so you admit that that's what you do, is that you mute people and then pretend to talk to them.
You're going to accuse me of bullying when you've just interrupted me. So, Brenda, if you go through the same fallacious argument incorrectly 4 times, I'm going to shut you up. This isn't your show. So, after 4 attempts of going round in circles, that's the end of your time talking. Now, if you think that that's bullying you, come up with some better arguments. Don't go around the same one 4 times that was debunked in 2015. For us to then have a little discussion. Shut the fuck up, you ignorant bitch. I'm in the middle of fucking talking. Yeah? Don't bully me, Brenda. Just because you think it's time for you to talk. No, it isn't. I'm in the middle of talking. Wait your turn, you rude bully. So
yeah,
the
you can pretend
gone
like
round,
you're
I've got to
upset,
shut you up.
You're
can't help yourself.
the bully.
You can't help yourself. You want to accuse me of bullying while you're interrupting me. Outrageous, you bully. That's what bullies do. They bully you by claiming you're bullying them. And then doing what Brenda's doing now, which is talking through me. Stopping me pointing out how she's bullying me by not letting me get to the end of this statement. Which is to say that this argument she went round in circles 4 times on was debunked in 2015. If she's not aware of it, she's mentally retarded, as she's been here that entire time. So she's either just here to argue for no point, or is giving us a nice little segue into discussing the whys and wherefores of the assumption in the mathematics of the R value when taking these measurements. And the declaration by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson that it works without the assumption of the R that you called a deduction. So you didn't win your argument, you're not being bullied, you're being a repetitive twat. And I'm going to point that out whether you like it or not. I'm going to point out that you've lost whether you like that or not, and whether you feel it's appropriate to talk through the absolute demolition of your complete garbage claim. Do you understand that?
Yeah, the argument has never been debunked. You claim
debunked because you assumed R. You complete retard. I debunked it. You repeated it 4 times. Now, I like the fact that you have brought it up. It means we can discuss your assumptive R value and where it's inserted in the maths. You saying it's never been debunked is merely your assertion that declares your zealotry. It has. I debunked it. You ignored it. That's because you're a zealot.
You don't know even the most basic math.
That's an ad hominem, so you can fuck off again. I'll put you on mute. I am not going to be ad homed by you after you've lost. You assume R in the argument you went around 4 times in. What are you going to do now? I've put you on mute and declared it. Say I'm bullying you because I'm talking and summarising without your nonsense assertions being interrupted over the top of me. Yeah, you're on mute, you dumb fuck. You assumed R. I debunked that, and you say I don't know anything and haven't debunked it. You're worthy of kicking out. You're just a twat. You've lost. You don't have to like it.
I bet she loves it because she keeps coming back.
She's a masochist.
I think they just used the tactic that worked on them, which is constant repetition of a false claim. Worked on them. It doesn't really work on us.
Incorrect. They're not trying to convince me. They're trying to convince themselves. So she's not repeating it for my benefit. You say it worked on them. Yeah, and they're still trying to reinforce it. Self-reinforcement, that's what it is. She's not going to convince me that assuming R's acceptable. That's been made plain, but she's going to argue it because she's trying to convince herself.
Correct. Yeah, I think that apparent to the audience here, which people are insecure in their alleged knowledge.
As I say, it's useful. It's useful for them to come and try and affirm their own religious zealotry. It means we get an opportunity to talk about things like the 2015 video made by Smokescreen Design where he debunked it 5 years ago. Hey Adam, should we chat about R for a bit?
Oh, what did I miss there then? Because I'd been working there. So what old chestnut's been?
Sticks and Shadows. Sticks and Shadows proves sphericity.
Oh,
that's the claim by Brenda. Sticks and Shadows proves sphericity. Simple trigonometry. And then when it gets to the point that I point out she's got to assume R at some stage, she says it's deduced after making the trigonometric measurements.
Oh, well, there is that. I mean, that one always did my head in. And I think it's Dr. Zach has the best analogy for that one, which was, how do you transport local time? So as far as we're aware, the only way they could do it is with an Eratosthenes cell phone. So we could say, yeah, the sun's overhead now in you know what I mean? Here, what angle is it for you, dude? To try and pretend.
Did they have an accurate measurement of distance back then?
Well, there's the other thing. How did they accurately measure in a non-topographical way the distance between the two towns? They'd have already had to have assumed R and known all the stuff to have done the calculations to then be able to do the calculation. It's a nonsense. Or, like I said, the only other way is for them to have had a mobile phone or some kind of instant communication device that allowed them to confirm the exact time. So how the hell do you confirm the time in one town but to know that it's midday in the other town unless you already know all the data? It's an impossibility, isn't it?
For back then, it seems so, yes.
Because you could do it now, couldn't we? I could say, well, it's midday here for me. What angle's the sun at for you now as we talk live? But other than that, how would I translate to you the time that you need to look in the sky?
You were there, weren't you?
Well, you just use a phone. You just use a phone.
Eratosthenes used a phone, did he?
Yeah, an Eratosthenes phone.
No, they just use local noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did they confirm the distance between those two locations?
They measured the distance.
With what?
Yeah, how?
With a measuring wheel.
Who cares?
But that would be a topographical. That's what I said, Brandon. It'd be a
cares?
topographical measurement.
None of this is relevant.
Yeah,
It
there's
assumes
nothing wrong.
Didn't we
You
cover
measure
this?
it with a wheel.
So now we're going to argue about how we've measured the distance between the two cities. What about assuming R?
You don't need to assume R.
Oh, you don't?
You have
Show us.
to
Show us
respect
the.
the whole
Hold on.
point of it,
Hold on.
Brenda.
Hold on. She says we don't need to assume R. No worries.
But
Show it. Oh, no worries. Show us the mathematics.
yeah, bring some cowbell.
Yeah, show us the maths.
And show us how the shadows doesn't work with 32-mile across sun, 3,000 miles away on a flat surface.
No, the only difference between those two measurements, Jibby, is R. That's the only difference, correct?
Yep, seems so.
Yo, Brenda, it doesn't need R according to you because you're a fuckwit. So show us it. Now. Yo!
You can look this up. There's
Yo!
thousands of
Fuckwit! You said it doesn't need to assume R, the very argument we had with you going around in circles because you're dumb. I'm not bullying you. You're dumb. You went round in circles and have now declared boldly it doesn't need to assume R, this 2015 argument. So show us. Don't tell me I can look it up, you dumb fuck. Get to it. Back your claim, you stupid cow. Yeah, so you can't back it. You're wrong. It absolutely, unequivocally requires you to assume that the Earth is a sphere in order to make this bullshit claim. So you will be assuming R, I absolutely assure you, you stupid moron. Okay?
No, you can, with three...
No, babble. Do you get it, you stupid cow? Do I need to repeat it 4 more times to undo the self-brainwashing you have performed here, you stupid monkey? You said it 4 times with assurance in your own mind that you didn't need to assume R. You've now declared it verbally. Do I need to repeat 5 more times to undo your own stupidity and brainwashing that you've demonstrated here? Because you're wrong. You will assume R, you stupid cow.
No.
How many more times?
No, you don't need to assume.
Yeah, so now you can show us that, can't you, Brenda? Yo!
Well, I can't.
Fuckwit! Get your ass in gear and go and show us the maths that doesn't assume this R value you will assume when we tell you you'll assume it. We know you're wrong. So show us it without an R assumed. Because it's already been explained only 3 minutes ago by Jibby that won't give you heliocentric distances. It won't give you sphericity because you haven't assumed the sphericity. That's why it won't work. I also explain that by doing this, it gets flat earthers to commit to this very local sun so that you can have a transposition of an azimuthal equidistant model for them to hold up as a little straw man. We've gone way beyond the assumption, and the programming the assumption you make with R leads to when you take away R. But you still think you don't need it, you complete retard?
No, you don't need it.
You're a fuckwit. Like, literally stupid.
You can...
Stupid,
because
that's what
you
you
can
are.
measure the angle.
I'm going to remove you because you're stupid. You're not giving us the cowbell. You're not showing us the maths. You're saying, incorrectly, I don't need it. Yes, you do. You are a sphere fundy. You absolutely need it. It was debunked in 2015, and the further connotations of the assumptions of flat earthers that come when we remove your R assumption are what have been discussed on this show. Now you're going to ignore all of it and simply say, no, we don't. Hand wave dismissal, the most useless of argument you could possibly present. You're useless to us.
Yep.
Shout out to Godzilla. I put 2 sticks in the ground, measured the shadows and calculated, and it's absolutely true. Brenda is a moron.
Certifiable.
Shout out to Godzilla. Thanks for the super chat.
Nathan, is there a way that you can put more people in the Discord? Because there are people wanting to join from the chat.
And Fretch, you'll have to move somebody that's on server mute. If nobody's on server mute, either pick a random and kick them to the after show. But no, because I need to be able to see them all. So if there's a load of, during that little back and forth, if there was a load of scratchy noise from some wanker with an open mic and I can't see them all, that makes life very difficult. But Paul's jumped
Cody, the lion retard in chat. Cody, come on in here. Mr. Moon Bounce. You didn't even know that radio waves were frigging photons, light, you clown. Come on in here and get your ass handed to you. Okay?
Okay, I'll move a couple of people that I haven't heard anything from to the after show, and hopefully there'll be a gap.
Well, Ranty, it's interesting that Brenda didn't respond to your photograph of 18 miles for lack thereof of sphericity proof, but wanted to go with shadows 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, I think the idea of having to actually envisage the edge of their sphere and then see a building loomed up above that, for them to actually come out and say that now, it's getting ridiculous. This idea of looming, it's preposterous. Because there is no evidence for it at all.
Yeah, in QE Saturday, you're going to do a really good segment on that, aren't you?
Saturday Ball Busters, you gotta be there. The death of the heliocentric ball-tard religion. It's gonna be painful.
Do you want to debate sometime, Quantum? I can debate you
shut
on
up.
physics or evolution anytime. I would destroy you. You're an imbecile.
Yeah, we're so afraid, Brenda.
Look, if you're just going to stick her on mute, let's move it to the after show. So if somebody wants to join, they can. There you go. There's 12 out of 15 now, so there's 3 gaps. Who is it you were trying to get? Cody or Toady?
That's you, Toady, the lion retard. Come on in.
He was actually quite useful yesterday in Ranty's chat because Anthony was reaching for the experiment that is not actually an experiment, but nevertheless Milgram, and there was Toady quite handy at the time.
This guy's such a moron. I'll tell you what, I've just been waiting to run my friggin' playlist on you. I'll tell you what, man. You think Brenda's bad? Where do you get a load of this character?
Brenda's just a masochist. She comes here with 2015 arguments. Either she is, as I point out with most people, trying to convince themselves of the argument that she's putting forward, because we're not convinced and have debunked it, but she's still convinced of it. Therefore, she's got to repeat
On
it.
any new platform! Not this one, QE! Not this platform, right, Toady? What a half a sissy you are. Clown show. Go look at radio waves. I'll tell you what, I'm going to bounce something off you. Cards.
To be fair, it's one of those where I don't necessarily encourage people. I'm not going to say, come on, Red Rhetoric, come on the show. Like, the show is here. There's a link in the info box. If they want to debate you, they can. Now, with you, obviously, you go on other platforms as well, which presumably aren't too biased for them or whatever. So there's plenty of opportunity to debate you. The same applies to me or anybody else who's on the G Plus panel. You know, you can join. I don't know if that's actually true this very second. Let's just check. Yeah, there is. Thank God. There's one gap. You can join if you want to. Now, do I give two shits whether or not they want to debate me? No. But if they want to debate me, they can. That's the point.
Why chase them with
That's
their
That's their only feeble, weak ass excuse. Go on other platforms. Well, I was on other platforms for 2.5 years, every single day, with 8 or 9 ballers in there, muting me, kicking me, over talking me for 2 years. Where were you?
Yeah, Same here.
Clown.
Just that's something that bugs the shit out of me. I've done this for a couple of years. I've been here since 2015. So it's like, no, I've been on plenty of platforms debating people. Where do you think I got the idea from? Well, going out and smashing ball tards and then them muting me and them kicking me and turning my volume down. And I thought, no, I can provide a much more even platform. And for the most part, the reasonably even-handed people in the comments say, yeah, there'd be outrage if someone was actually making a winning, cohering argument and they got muted. That's not what happens. Like with Brenda earlier today, they get to repeat their argument 4 times before eventually they get shut up through absolute tedium being reached. No. That's not... You don't just get shut up for no reason here. Whereas when I was out there trying to put a winning argument across, when I was very much on other people's platforms, my platform didn't even exist. Well, I was debating with people out there, and as you say, QE, where were you? Oh, didn't even understand that the subject existed at that point, mate. Just got here in the last 6 months and want to tell me that I've got a circle jerk when I got an open link. Yeah, that's what I get all day. Horse shit.
You're a demonstrated liar, Toady. I already demonstrated you a liar. Already demonstrated you a liar, sir. And you're a moron. You don't know what a hypothesis is. We already demonstrated that too. You need me to run that on Thursday?
I had gripes being muttered from Jibby Jedi. I want to hear him. He was around while I was around on the circuit, so go ahead, Jibby.
Oh, yeah, I was saying I was there, Nathan, and whenever they invited us onto their platforms, we were always outnumbered, and they would constantly mute us, ban us, ghost us, kick us out. Your platform is quite fair to them compared to their platforms with us.
Yeah, the reality of the situation is they don't like losing. And here, we won't have our points obfuscated, and we'll give them a fair chance to actually put a cogent argument across. When it gets debunked, the hand wave dismissal doesn't work that it would on other platforms. Again, subscribe below to the second channel for the pre-show where this exact thing was discussed.
I just want to say that I've hosted 2 recent debates between myself and the Rumpus and Ruhif, and it didn't go well for any of those guys. They were still using arguments from 2015, and I think that's why they won't come here.
Your Ruhif argument was exceptional. So about a third of the way through, I was in the chat, and I was like, as soon as he begs the question, it was my almost, rudeness towards Ranty when I'm like, when he gets to begging the question, I don't want that to slide. And obviously by saying that, I'm assuming Ranty would let it slide. But instead, Ranty was taking him on a very specific journey, and he got him there. It was epic. So check out Ranty's chat with Ruhif. Very cool, calm, and collectedly takes him on this merry dance of assuming and then by the end he's going, but you don't know how to measure radius. It was just brilliant.
But the wind was blowing.
I did the same with the Rumpus as well, and I led him on a little merry dance, getting him to the end, to the point where he was actually saying that water is flat and flat is curved.
It's crept up on us all.
Oh, God, Mr. Second Law of Thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth. Shocking you got him to say that. How about Roofy with his wind? Well, you need wind because you can't take those photographs, can't take those observations from ground level because of wind. Roofy, you Dunning-Kruger delusional Muppet, you. I mean, you're the poster child for Dunning-Kruger.
He's a slave to what the model says he can and can't do. The model says you can't take observations over water. Now, you know what I've got on my camera, Ruhif? I've got a shutter button. I can? It's amazing. What's that? Your model says I can't? Oh, fuck your model. And its cross-section in Muppet Vision. That apparently it doesn't matter when you talk left or right. I'm going to give massive props to Ranty, because he spotted this about a year ago. Tried to get it through, and it didn't sink in. It's like a lot of things. I'm slow. But nevertheless, that also came up on the show, so I'm going to paraphrase it and hopefully Ranty will expand on it. When you see Muppet Vision, you've got one line between you and the target. There's no x-axis looking left or right in the image. Now, obviously, in any image that you're presented with, you've got an angle on the horizon, or a horizontal angle, and Ranty pointed out that there could be varying conditions left of the image and right of the image. You could be looking across quite a vast area, and they could have completely weather. There could be a cloud over one of them. Well, in that instance, you've suddenly got a massive problem for their Muppet Vision, which only gives you one slice. It doesn't have a left or right. It hasn't even got a horizon. Anyway, can you expand on that, Ranty? Because that was absolutely epic also, on the same discussion with Ruhif.
Yeah, it's a very simple concept. If you've got, if you're taking a photograph of a span of, say, a 50-mile span or a 40-mile span, so an entire cityscape across a lake, let's say, or a mountain in the distance that's perhaps 30 or 40 miles wide or whatever, and you've got the whole thing in one shot, then if it's all in proportion, if that image is all in proportion, if the buildings that you've taken that image of are all lined up perfectly horizontal, there's no wave, there's nothing to say that one is higher than the other or one's lower than the other, there's no distortion, then that says that when you took that image, you would have had to have perfect refractive conditions from that entire 40-mile stretch, from left to right, and all the way to the camera, the amount of distance that you're actually taking the image from. So, but in their model, just a 1 or 2 degree difference from different locations will give you a different refractive index. So it will flatten it, or it will loom it. So one or the other, loom or sink. So it'll loom or sink. So when you take those images, you should see distortions all over the place, but we never do. And the reason I quantified that was because where I live in Blackpool, the temperature can be, say, 20 degrees. Over in Preston, just 15 miles away, it could be 17 degrees or 18 degrees, and you'll know this yourself, wherever you live, 20 or 30 miles away, there's going to be different weather conditions. There's going to be different. It could be raining. It could be colder. There could be a slightly cold front, warm front. Well, if you can take an image, a snapshot from A to B and cover an entire 40 or 50 mile span, then you are going to be taking imageries that have different refractive indexes in their model. And you should see these buildings all over the place when you take these images, but we don't. And that disproves this nonsense about looming and being able to be pulled up from beyond the curve due to whatever. It's just not there. It never happens. We never see this.
When you put this through
from a maths point of view, right? They're saying that these effects, just with standard refraction, 7/6R. Now, because it's not 6/6, and because you're supposedly traveling over a ball, because it's slightly out of proportion, because you travel different distances, that proportionality would then skew the image. So the further away, do you understand? So that nearer objects and different further objects would have different levels of a 7/6R refraction applied to them.
Right.
So it wouldn't resolve to a realistic image because they've been perverted different amounts before they reach your eye.
Yeah.
Sorry, just going to do a quick shout out. Sorry to talk over you, Ranty. Shout out to Alexander. The era of pseudoscience passed away. More and more people realise the Earth is not a globe. Sorry, Ranty. Thanks for the super chat, Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, Adam's quite right. If you're looking at a slight angle and you're looking at that 50-mile span, but you're looking at a slight angle, so the left-hand side that's 50, it could be 54 miles away, and the near point could be, say, 25 miles away, and you're looking at a 50-mile span. Well, if you've got the same refractive index over that, then obviously you won't see the distant buildings because they would have sunk into the ocean, as Adam's quite rightly pointing out. But I'm just trying to say that if you're looking at across a lake, and you've got a dead-on view of, say, a New York skyline or whatever, and let's suppose that skyline's 30 miles away, but in your camera you can capture a 50-mile image, right? Then you've got to have perfect weather conditions across that entire 50-mile stretch to get a perfectly symmetrical image. Any distortions in the weather, if you've got like a warm front on the right and you've got a cold front on the left, then it should be all over the place when you take that image, because the refractive indexes are going to be different, and we never see that ever.
Just before Adam pops up again, when you put that to Ruhif, he said that it wouldn't matter. The conditions wouldn't make any difference when panning left or panning right, even though if this was absolutely the case in the Isle of Man, you're looking down the island. It's like an almond shape, and as you're looking down the island, you're looking further and further away. Well, at that point, Chris Monk, who was modelling for us at the time, pointed out that nothing in their model is where it's supposed to be. Beyond the horizon, everything's, as Adam just detailed, slightly further in terms of the attribution of 7/6R to where the positioning then lies in the image. So you've got it essentially loomed further up from beyond the curve as you pan left or pan right. Now in their calculator, you've only got the fixed 1 degree that you're looking along the side slice with you in the picture. So in a Muppet Vision representation of a curve calculator, you've got you on the left, the target on the right, and you've only got that cross section. So you can't pan further left and further right. You're only taking into account the refractive index at 7/6 of the begging the question R value on that one slice. But in an image, like on any image on screen now, we're not just seeing one slice of this then flipped around on its side 90 degrees with the photographer in the representation. You've got a complete horizontal representation, and as Ranty's pointing out, you could have a weather front over here and sunshine over here. You know, on the left-hand side of the image, it's perfectly clear weather with no clouds. On the right, you've got clouds and a weather front coming in. So it's potentially going to be very different in terms of how it represents itself. But because they're only taking one cross-section and then flipping that on its side 90 degrees, so you can see you on the left and the target on the right, well, you've got no panning across a horizon when you're looking from observer to target. So, again, in Ruhif's mind, because the model doesn't account for it and can't, it doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it bloody does matter. We're dealing with reality. My last point is that when Ranty pointed all this out, Ruhif challenged him to provide the proof of any of these claimed to be conditions that would make it vary. But yet he's perfectly content to assume one single cross-section with none of this making any difference, and are begging the question R value of a sphere Earth, and light bending over it at 7/6R without a single measurement being taken. But Ranty's objection requires measurements. But his assumptions sound. Just absurd.
Yeah. Yeah, but the wind wasn't blowing, Nathan.
Yeah, too close to the ground.
And another thing, you're talking about a person. Here's what Roofy said to, I think it was Ranty. Two statements that he said to Ranty. I think it was Ranty or Arwen. I can't remember. Here we go. Roofy, so you understand that an area with the same elevation is a curved surface. That's Roofy number one. Roofy number two. Sea level is a curve. This is who you're talking about here.
And with that, I'll say if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive thank you to all of the new members, people who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
That was fun.
Always.
You said something there, Nathan, that took me back a little bit. You mentioned Chris Monk's model. And I remember back in the day when we were looking at it, there's 2 points to this, and both are nice ball slappers. When the first, I suppose, is a critique of Chris's model, it was really well done. But what he actually did was place the observer and then build the model on a ball. So the distance from the observer to the Isle of Man was viewed over a ball. And then he placed that ray tracing, which had been done on the Isle of Man, I think, by the military. I think that's where he got it from, wasn't it? It was a proper scanned model.
Just trying to find it on my screen thumbnail as well.
But as far as I remember, he placed that on the model, and it was a official model. And when he placed it on, I remember asking him, did he then have to layer it onto the surface of the ball he'd made? And he said, no, it was flat. So 2 points. First thing is the actual data that he'd got from official sources showed the water as flat, because when he tried to just place that model onto the ball, it didn't fit. The water was flat. But secondly, it also means that we gave the ballers in all those observations even more leeway, because if you the distance was to the nearest point at the island. At that point, in Chris's model, the cumulative effect of the curvature ceased.
Right.
Because at that point it became a flat model, and that was because the original data. I think it's military. I want to say in my head.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember the name of the scan, but it was like a laser scan.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Wasn't it LiDAR?
I was going to say LiGo, and I didn't want to get it wrong. You're right. It was a LiDAR scan. That's correct, Ranty.
Yeah. So if you see the image on screen now, if that box coming up is the image looking over the ball, then as soon as from that point on that cumulative drop stops, and Chris's model just had a flat Isle of Man stuck on, so it would curve. The Earth continued to curve underneath it, but the Isle of Man was flat.
Right. Well, I've got this up for a slightly different reason, just because it was being detailed earlier, and I forgot I had this image, and I just stumbled across it whilst looking for the model. I will hopefully find that before the end of the show. But it's a great image because it's useful for essentially detailing how they've hijacked perspective. So this is Muppet vision. What we've got here is a side elevation. Now, there's a certain 3D or certain three-dimensionality to it that I want you to ignore for the purposes of this. But nevertheless, this is a representation of a slice, a side view. So if you take this box as being the frame of what you see in your camera, this is your camera view. So it gives you kind of a representation of that being the frame. Now, obviously, it's very tall and thin because we've turned it on its side, not quite through 90 degrees, but nearly, so we can see this box that represents the frame. So in the same token, this line goes down to the side of the head of the observer. So like in this instance, this is supposed to be the picture with inside this box on the left. But we're not getting that, we're getting the side view, which isn't representative of what's in this picture. Nevertheless, because we're in a side view, the mountain that's closest to the actual observer in actual size on this picture is exactly the same size as this mountain over on the far right. Now, in reality, in your picture, you've got a mountain that's close to you and a mountain that's much, 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 much smaller further away, way behind it. But that isn't how it's represented when you turn it side on. You remove all aspects of perspective. So this is just a useful image for me to say that's how I'm trying to detail what Ranty's explaining, because what Ranty's saying is on your frame, so you can't see my mouse unfortunately in the Hangout, but for the audience's benefit, on the left-hand side of the frame, looking out over, over here, you can have a certain type of weather, and on the right-hand side of the frame, which is looking over here, you've got a different type of weather. But because the mathematics of the globe only represents it in this side elevation, you've only got one slice, one straight view from observer to target, no horizontal arc to take into account the fact that between here and here, in reality, you could have completely different weather, necessitating totally different measurements, not just an arbitrary 7/6R, begging the question of the sphere in the first place. But by putting it on its side, you're removing perspective, and you only have to deal with this one side slice of the representation when you're taking into account this side, the left, having a completely different weather to this side, the right. You've only got this side profile and one angle only. So when Ruhiv had to address this, it doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it does matter. It's incredibly important, especially if you're going to assume R and say that's acceptable. So while I'm hunting, Adam, I don't know if you've got anything to add, but I'll see if I can find the actual Isle of Man model, hopefully. It's the thing on the T-shirts.
Yeah, if you want to put me up, Nathan,
sure.
Just sharing. This is to just give an idea, this is how I envisage it. So if this is an image taken of a skyline, I think this is Hong Kong at the moment. Now, I've no idea of the distances, so I can't actually be specific about how far this actual image is because I've just pulled it up on Google. But what I'm saying here is that if on the left-hand side in this area, let's suppose the people living here have the conditions there are say 20 degrees, and over this side here, the weather conditions are 17 degrees. So it's quite colder over this side than it is on this side. And we're going to assume that this is, say, a 20-mile stretch of sea from here. So 17 degrees over here and 20 degrees over here. And what I've done is I've cropped out in the middle. And instead of seeing this perfect symmetrical skyline, which we always do, the buildings are always in proportion, nothing's ever changed or warped. What we're probably going to see, or we should see, is something like that, where there's a different refractive zone with just 17 degrees over here. You know, it's flattened it out, let's say. And on this side, it hasn't because it's 20 degrees. And you would see this warping effect, you know, like so.
However, what they do is they take
like
the line,
that.
but they take the line you originally drew, and then that one line that you originally drew down the center of it is the only angle they worry about, because they're going to take that line and flip it 90 degrees onto its side into Muppet Vision, otherwise known as orthographic view, in case anyone wants the technical term for Muppet Vision. Orthographic view is that line Ranty drew in the first instance. If you
It's just one strip. That's one strip. From the side on, it's one strip.
Exactly.
From there to there.
Yeah.
But in these images, you have, say, 10,000 strips going across. And to get a flat image, a completely symmetrical image, all the gradients have to be the same. They have to have the same weather conditions across all this water section from the object to the camera lens, across the whole section. And if it's not, if this has a different area where it's different weather conditions over here, then the light is going to be not reaching your camera at 7.6R, it might be reaching at 8.6R, you know, in which case you're going to get all this distortion whenever you take these skyline images, but we never see that. And I think that kind of debunks the notion that different temperatures and temperature gradients have an effect on ambient light.
Just to let you know that the 35 people in Discord can't see what you're talking about.
Yeah,
just to let you know.
I know. I'm sorry. Tough.
No, not Nathan. Just the Ranty and everyone else. So they can't. They're not going to be able to speak to it.
Sure, we appreciate that. But I'm just going to make my last example just because I've now got it on screen. So this is the Isle of Man model. So when I said it looked like an almond, that's what I'm talking about. As you're looking down this image, you're seeing further and further away. Now, at the top, you can probably see this arc. Well, that's the actual image that was... Whoever's typing in Discord, for Jesus' sake, put yourself on mute. So this arc is the actual image that Anthony took. It's like a sliver in the image. It's slightly darker, because this is an overhead view of the model that was made by LiDAR and then transposed onto this image, which is this arc. But, as you can see... Even though this is the start of the image and this is the end of the image, the picture, the photograph that Anthony's composited together, or Ranty put a composite together of, what you're only actually ever looking at when you look at the maths is one line. So we're going to see when it's in the curve maths, this being the right-hand side of the image, yeah, the target, and this being the left-hand side of the image, down here where we've got the actual observation, St. Bees, Isle of Man. So you'll end up having that represented as left-hand side observer, right-hand side target. Well, that means you've only got this one line to worry about in terms of what the conditions are like, even though on the left-hand side, you could have vastly different conditions to on the right-hand side. You know, a storm could be coming in over here and it could be completely still in sunshine over here on the image. But if you've only got one line, a cross-section in Muppet Vision, turned at 90 degrees... So you're literally then looking at this section, the 90 degree on Muppet Vision section, the orthographic view, then you don't have to worry about things getting further and further away from the observer. And in this instance, when Ranty's detailing the weather, the fact that one side could have to have a magical amount of refraction bringing it back and the other side might not need any because of the varying conditions. But that doesn't have to be accounted for in their maths if you've only got one line to worry about. Even though the image is clearly not comprised of one line, it could be millions, as Ranty puts it. Anyway, that's me done.
Yeah, well, as long as people get the gist of that, I think they can work with it, and they'll hopefully get to understand that concept. You know, like you say, Muppet Vision, they take one slice of the pizza, right? So there's one slice of the pizza that they take out, and they say, right, this is the same for the entire image. But if you've taken a snapshot of a skyline of, say, 50 miles, from one side to the other, then that pizza has to have the same temperature from left to right the whole way. Otherwise, the image won't be symmetrical. And we always see a symmetrical image.
Yeah, unless there's very obvious refractive effects going on that are normally detailed if you wiki any of these terms they hijack, like looming or
refractive effects. They don't even know what refraction is, for crying out loud. We're going to deal with that Saturday on Ballbusters, brother. It's game time, and the game's over.
Yeah, they don't use refraction. Refraction is something else they've hijacked. Refraction would be this transition of light from its straight path. Well, that transition has been claimed to curve light through endless, seemingly glass slices of Earth that refract the light at 7/6 of a presupposed radius value when no measurements are ever taken. Well, that presupposition is not refraction. It's called terrestrial refraction, otherwise known as the mathematical values 7/6R.
Ranty, you know, on
Precisely.
that, when you were talking with Ruif, he kept saying that, yeah, to do your 7/6, you had to get to a certain height, because apparently, and I didn't understand the point, so you can give a bit of clarity. He was kind of saying that refraction doesn't work at lower levels, or you don't understand refraction, Ranty. That's why you can't take these observations near the ground. I assume it's only because it disproves a ball, but was there any real validation?
No, he was trying to say that the wind was able to affect the observation somehow by churning up the weather conditions.
What at lower ground? So the wind don't move up high up.
So if you went above that layer where all this dynamic stuff is going on, then you should get out of that dirty zone, and a lot of it's down to the wind.
Well, doesn't it beg the question? How could he tell which way or whether the wind was blowing in a photograph of a place he's never been to? Unbelievable.
Because, John, because you can see the image, so you can clearly see it was a squally day. Because you can see it.
Well, I just caught on to something. Wait one. I just caught on to something here. We got Acom virus in here. Sorry to change up on you. This is what he said in chat. They say the globe doesn't satisfy the second law. ... How much heat energy would the Earth have to lose to satisfy it? Are you drinking this morning, son? Come off mute.
What's up, QE?
What's up, Acom virus? They say, who are they?
Flat Earthers.
Okay, flat earth. So to take your stereotype fallacy a little further, they say the globe doesn't satisfy the second law. And your rationale is how much heat / energy would the Earth have to lose to satisfy it? Can you... This is so stupid, it's hard to put into language. What the hell are you talking about?
I was wondering if there's an amount of heat or energy that the Earth needs to lose into its surrounding system in order to satisfy the second law of thermodynamics.
Well, who said it didn't satisfy it in the first place? Can you have entropy increase without heat or energy change?
I'm not sure. That's the reason I'm asking this type of questions.
You don't even know that, and you're asking this question?
Yeah, because I'm curious.
What is the second law of thermodynamics?
I'm not sure, but according to y'all, it's about high pressure going to low pressure. According to y'all,
I'm not sure.
So I'm trying to understand what y'all version of the second law of thermodynamics is.
I'm not sure.
Oh dear.
Yeah, do you have a problem with me being honest?
Sorry, I got.
He's just trying. He's just
No.
trying to
You can
learn.
laugh. Laugh all you want. That's a good thing. You can laugh.
The one thing I would say is that, I mean, you've been on the scene for at least a year, I would say, and to not know these arguments, since you're in the chat every day, it's embarrassing. How come you don't know?
Hold on.
The second law of thermodynamics. How do you not know this?
For instance, I might actually know, but I just don't want to say that I know. You have to remember that I don't really take this too seriously. So I'm asking questions to get y'all answer, but I want to pretend like I don't know anything so I can accept y'all answer without any kind of bias.
Really? Well, they say the globe doesn't actually satisfy the second law. Who's ever said that?
Isn't that what y'all problem? Y'all call the sky vacuum a violation of the second law?
What does that have to do with heat?
That would be a part of the globe. And
What does that have to do with
thermodynamics, I
heat?
figured thermo means heat.
But here's
I mean,
the
I
problem.
could be wrong. I'd have no problem being wrong. But this is just a question that I was asking because I really wanted to know. So do you have an answer for that, Kiwi?
Boy. Well,
do
if
you
you
think-
tell me what the
or-
second law of thermodynamics is, then I'll friggin' walk you stepwise through it.
No, just go ahead. Just go ahead and spit it
Go
out. Because
ahead,
I
Go
really
ahead,
want
what?
to know.
You
I
already
Go
want
said
to
ahead,
you
know.
what?
don't know.
You don't have a
Unless-
claim yet.
Unless it doesn't need
You don't have a
any
claim
heat
yet.
or energy, or like I said, unless it doesn't need
virus.
any heat or energy loss to satisfy the second law of
Virus,
thermodynamics.
Need to go back to
if you're trying to
Virus,
learn
virus.
something, right? You're trying to have a discussion
Virus,
with QE.
listen.
You're
They
trying
make
to
the
assert
claim.
things about a law that you just claim you don't know about. So when he asks you about
Yeah,
it,
I'm asking
why don't
about
you
it.
why don't
I'm
you
not
do
telling
the
you
first
anything
thing that
about it. I'm
normal
asking
people would
about
do
it.
would be look it up, right? And then you guys could talk about it. Why do you go straight to
I'd rather
I just
hear
don't
your
know and I want
version
to
of
see
it
what you
because the
say?
second law of
Because if you
thermodynamics
don't
it
listen
could
to
be
what
two
I'm
different
saying,
things
bro.
from what they say
If you
compared to
don't
what you say.
understand the law yourself and he gives you a rebuttal to the question that you ask, how is it going to make any sense if you don't understand the very law you're asking about? Do you understand
You
what
never
I'm
know. It
saying?
might make complete sense to me if he explains it in a certain way.
Hold on. Here's
You just
here's a
never
couple
gave
of
it a
points.
chance. You're just not giving it a chance. And
But
maybe
here's
other
a couple
people,
of points.
and it may be other people in the audience that want to know as well.
What the fuck? I'll worry about what the audience is getting. Who the fuck do you think you are, Virus? Do you think I need you to worry about what I communicate with my audience? No, mate. Just accept when you don't know something, rather than saying, I might know, I might just be really elusive when it comes to the second law of the... Just say I don't know.
Okay, I don't have a problem saying I don't know.
Then don't make
have
any
that problem.
claims.
I didn't even make a claim.
You did.
Well, y'all have a problem with the second law of thermodynamics with the globe. That's all I know.
But you just claimed that you don't even know what the second law is. That's what I'm
So why'd
saying,
you
bro. You
explain it
got
to me?
to start with some type of a fucking default, bro. If you don't even know the law, how are you asking questions about a law you don't know about? And then come here and claim that you don't know it.
Because I might actually know about it. So why don't you just tell me, answer the question? Why don't you just answer the
what question?
The question I posted.
How
Unless
much
you
heat
think it's a
energy
non
will the
sequitur.
Earth have to lose?
If you think,
Shut up!
If you think it's a non sequitur,
Shut up!
He's repeating your question.
Here's your question. How much heat energy would the Earth have to lose to satisfy it? It's non sequitur. What, do you think there's a cutoff of heat to lose? Oh, now the Earth satisfies the second law. What the hell? My word, son. Go back to romper room.
Do you want to hear what I found on second law? So I sat through endless, boring hours of MIT lectures because I didn't know what the second law was. Now, I'd heard summaries like high pressure to low pressure was your example. Now, when I parroted that back, I was challenged to expand on it and couldn't do it. So I thought, well, I've got to go and watch these endless, boring, crappy videos. So that's precisely what I did. Now, while it wasn't necessarily that useful, it was great when I stumbled across a clip that was helpful.
Content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseWare continue to offer high-quality educational resources.
Who's playing that?
Me.
Donation or view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses. Visit MIT OpenCourseWare at ocw.mit.edu.
All right, let's try another pretty simple process. Let's just take a gas in some volume, V, and over here is going to be vacuum of equal volume, and we're going to remove the barrier. You know what's going to happen spontaneously, right? The gas is going to fill the available volume once it becomes available, right? You know what's going to happen spontaneously, right? The gas is going to fill the available volume once it becomes available. And we're going to remove the barrier. The gas is going to fill the available volume. Take a gas, and over here is going to be vacuum, and we're going to remove the barrier. You know what's going to happen spontaneously, right? The gas is going to fill the available volume, fill the available volume, fill the available volume, fill the available volume.
There you go. That was the most useful bit I found. He draws a container and says you take a gas in a volume, put it next to a vacuum, and then you remove the barrier, and the gas fills the available volume.
If you want to expand on that, Nathan, I just dropped the other one in Master B.
Yeah, sure.
With the actual demonstration of it.
One of these bulbs, some bromine, and in the other I have a vacuum. And if I open the tap between these two, you will see spontaneously the bromine rush from one to the other. Now that is the simplest change we can have, perhaps, because all that happens is a change in entropy. In this case, the expansion into a vacuum, nothing else is involved. There's no energy change, there's no temperature change, there's no change except entropy. So without the entropy constant.
Thank you, Chocolate. Very useful.
No problem.
Did that help, Virus? Someone put him on server mute. Yeah, they have. Ori left and came back. Did that help, Virus?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Like I say,
So-
endless, boring hours of watching MIT lectures to find that one little snippet that is useful to everyone. Put a gas
Sublime.
with pressure next to a vacuum, the gas goes into the vacuum. It's just as simple as that. Now, if the sky's a vacuum, we've got gas pressure, that gas pressure would go into the vacuum, just like the guy in MIT says. It's called entropy.
But Nathan, what happens if it's just 0.00001% of pressure?
It still
Hang on
goes
for a
into
sec.
It still goes
Hang
into
on.
the available. It still fills the available volume.
Yes, it would. You're right.
A blind sniper, based on that, can you now tell us in a summary the second law and entropy and gas pressure next to a vacuum?
That's a bit much, isn't it?
Say that one more time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, please, now that you've seen that from an MIT professor and then the other one that Chocolate put up, please summarize what happens when you have gas next to a vacuum, since you just saw that and heard that.
I figured just equalizes out.
Man, that's progress. Amazing progress from a I can't believe my ears.
Oh, I can't either.
So it would equalise. In other words, the gas we're breathing at high pressure would disperse into the available volume until it reached equilibrium. So we wouldn't have 14.7 psi here. That would disperse into the vacuum until we were at pretty much the same exact pressure as is claimed to be outer space. 10 to the minus 17 torr would be what we would be experiencing here on Earth if the sky was a vacuum, because the gas would fill the space.
Okay, but yeah, I just wanted my question answered. I don't really agree with that, but I'm not.
Don't agree. It's a law of nature. Yeah, hold on.
I just
Hold
really
on.
wanted my question answered.
Yeah,
That's all.
it's not agree, disagree. We are talking about a law of nature, inviolable, never to be defied, always applicable law of nature. Not an agree, disagree situation. He's just describing and demonstrating the law of nature when he says the gas at pressure will fill the available volume. That's a law of nature. That's what's going to happen whether you agree or disagree. The point is that outer space, claimed to be a vacuum, is an absolute abortion of this natural law. It violates it completely. Ergo, outer space isn't real. You can't have gas pressure next to a vacuum. That's a violation of this natural law. You don't have to like it, but it's not an agree-disagree situation. Law of nature, mate.
Okay, I still don't agree, but I'm not here for that.
No,
Okay.
listen, you don't have that opportunity anymore. You came on and posed a question. It got answered. You said it would equalize. You
Yeah, I got my
agreed
answer.
with-
Okay, that's it. Okay.
No. There is ramifications.
No.
You must.
Okay.
Oh,
that's it.
yes, there
Okay.
are. Don't be a coward, blind sniper. If it equalizes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, what?
Okay.
Go on, tell him, 10th man, tell him. There's
I'm talking,
ramifications.
but he keeps interrupting me. There are ramifications when your questions get answered scientifically, even. And then you do not agree with it after it got answered, and you agreed with it before you said you didn't agree with it. So what is going on with your little backsliding here?
Yeah, there's a word for it. It's called zealotry.
How about this? My question was answered. I'm happy. That's it.
So what does it
What
mean
was your question?
when gas pressure, right?
Oh,
So
no,
what
hold
does
on.
it mean when it
He didn't state a
equalizes?
question. He made a claim.
I asked a question.
What are you
My
talking
question-
about? You made a claim.
My question was, how much heat energy would the Earth have to lose in order to satisfy the second law?
And
My
then you
answer-
said, I
my
bet you they
answer-
don't even know.
And my answer was,
And
it
you
doesn't need to.
said, and you answered it. Bet you they don't even know. Tell us.
You just gave me an answer, so obviously you know.
What's the answer?
It doesn't need to lose any heat energy. Y'all have it about the gas. It's
So
not about
your
heat
claim
energy.
and
So
your
that answers my question.
was a non sequitur, like I said from the beginning.
It's a
right?
malformed
That's
question.
what I said from the get go. If you wouldn't have had me muted, you would have said that. You
From
would
the
have heard me.
non sequitur.
No. Hold on. He's cried foul. Now, if we hadn't have had him muted, he'd have explained that to us really clearly. Now we've laid it out to him.
Yeah. If it was a non sequitur, I said if it's a non sequitur, just say that, and I would be satisfied.
When
That's
did
what
you
I
say
said,
that?
but you had me muted.
When did you say that?
When you had me muted, obviously.
When
'cause
we had
didn't
you
hear it.
muted, when you had verbal diarrhea that you couldn't support your train wreck claim.
No.
You mean
it was
that
not-
time?
But the ramifications, Virus, are that given that you accept that it would equalise, I think was the word you used, that we can't have a sky
Yeah.
vacuum. That's the ramifications. You appreciate that.
No, I don't. But like I said, that's not what I was here for. Y'all answered my question, and I'm happy with that.
You may not have come here for that, but that is the answer to your question, and you even validated that. But now you can't
Okay,
say
well,
after
it's like I
Stop
said.
interrupting
Like
me.
I said,
Oh, there you go.
it's fine. You are good.
Well,
You
you
answered
can't-
my
we're in
question.
the-
I'm good.
Blind sniper, we're in the same reference frame. Don't interrupt me. You're not good after proven to be wrong and won't admit it. That's not good. And you even validated it for yourself. And then when asked, what does it mean? You backtrack.
Yeah.
Shame on you. You're not honest.
Zealotry. He accepts
Yeah.
that it would equalise,
This- I'm
except
saying-
when it
I'm
contradicts
saying,
his
obviously,
religious
I'm
belief.
trying to-
So, because he's accepted it, this is
So
where we can
Akuma
declare
virus,
zealotry.
Why doesn't it equalise?
Because
Why
his
doesn't
religious
the
belief
gas
says.
fill space?
I was just about to say that. Because his religious belief says otherwise. That's the essence of zealotry.
So what's his thinking? How does he explain it to
He
himself?
can't explain it. It's
My
just
religious belief has
zealotry.
nothing to do with the shape of the earth. Please stop doing that.
My bad, Virus, sorry.
I appreciate that apology and I accept it. Thank you so much for that, Nathan.
So, blind sniper, if it's going to equalize into the vacuum because of the available space, and we don't see it equalizing, what does that mean?
There's probably forces acting upon it. At least that's what I'm guessing.
What forces?
If you add, I can understand it, but if you just ask what forces, then I'm just going to answer with weight.
Can you demonstrate that?
Weight's down. Gas expands
I
in all
probably have to.
directions.
I'm sorry, Nathan. My bad.
I was just going to say weight is
sorry.
down.
Yeah, I was saying the force that I was talking about is just weight.
That's a down, a vector of down that you're measuring.
Yeah.
Well, gas
Okay,
expands
yeah.
in all directions, including up and out into a sky vacuum if it was one. You know, equalization, as you described earlier, conceded and then decided it wasn't relevant because of your religious belief that it isn't doing that.
My religious belief doesn't.
Yeah,
care.
you've got a religious belief that it isn't doing that. And why? Well, because forces. Well, what forces? Well, down. Well, no. Gas expands in all directions. So this downward weighing things. Gas is expanding in all directions. Up. That's how we have the gradient.
Can I ask something, Rick?
I was just going to say that's how we have a gradient. You know, the gases are produced at ground level, but they make their way up.
Well, that's the point. He said weight, but gas is going up, so it can't be weight because it's going up.
But wouldn't that give it a projectile-like motion?
Yeah, projecting straight into that sky vacuum, mate. Vast speed.
No, I mean like a normal. I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
No, just do it very quickly. Rapid equalization. You know, we would never reach the point where we ever had gas pressure if the sky was a vacuum. There'd be no way for the gas pressure to form in the first instance. As soon as any was pumped out of a rock, it would immediately vacuate and go into the sky vacuum. You'd never reach a point where we ever had any pressure.
Can I ask something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Does gas molecules have weight to them?
I've just gone over this. Weight being down. Yeah, also up.
Okay, but do
Blind
gas
Sniper,
molecules
does gas go
to
in
it-
all
to them?
directions? Let's go basic here. Does gas move in all directions?
Yes, I believe so. But I also believe they have weight, which gives them a projectile-like motion.
Yeah, you could just
I'm trying to
ignore.
understand from-
Weight gives a projectile-like motion? That's a non sequitur. Define weight.
Downward force.
Weight is a downward force. Do you have a citation?
No, not at the moment, but I might be able to find one.
Please. I
Well,
want to
if
know what
weight
this force is.
If
Is it a
weight is a
fundamental
downward
force?
how come it's going up?
Because things can fight forces. Things can do that. You can fight a force.
You can fight a force. Really?
If
Citation,
somebody-
please.
Yeah, if somebody is pushing against
Yeah,
you, you can
citation,
push back.
please. We want
No, look.
citations before the next words come out.
No, this is all based on the assumption that gravity is a force. And hey, even if you
I'm
presuppose
not
that,
saying- I didn't
then
say
gravity
nothing
is a
about
weak
gravity.
force versus entropy, which is
I
a
didn't-
strong force.
Listen,
But it's not a good argument.
You know, that's right, Arvin, but he didn't
Yeah.
use gravity. He said that if the second law, once it was made relevant to him, that everything would equalize with the available space. He said that. So now he's saying the reason they don't equalize is because of weight. So now QE's asking him, what does weight do? And then he says, well, it's pushing everything down. And then he has to realize that it's not pushing everything down because gas goes up. And he's stuck again.
I say it once more. Arwin's summary ended that conversation, by the way. I appreciate the roundup from you, 10th Man, but Arwin basically just took a big crap on it. So thanks, Arwin. Nicely summarised.
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with gravity. I'm gonna go see if I can find a citation or something. But remember that
I like
my
how you
argument had
guys
nothing
like
do
to
with gravity.
assert forces, but no longer like to use the word gravity.
Yeah, I know. It's
Very
funny, isn't it?
adorable.
The trench
But
warfare.
gravity isn't a force.
We know.
I can't call
Oh,
gravity
we
a
know
force.
that.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, so
The globe
so
heads
why
on your
y'all
side
making
aren't
it
going to be
seem
very
like that
happy
I'm
for
talking
you
about
saying that,
gravity when I'm
Virus. You
talking about a
know that,
force?
right?
Okay. Well, is weight a force?
I see weight as a force.
And as John asked you
That's the reason it goes in pounds and newtons and stuff
I know,
like that. Because it's
I
a
know. I
force.
was just trying to. I want to round out. So, have you been asked for a citation in this
Hey, my bad.
regard, by any chance?
No, I'm finna look for one now though. So damn phone. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go quiet and I'm gonna go look for a citation.
Saved by the bell. Phone call, eh?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, my bad. It wasn't the other phone was ringing.
It's all good. Hopefully we'll get a citation for the next show. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who did tune in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G Plus panels for making this after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!